Talk Pro. Today we've got a very interesting and important segment. I'm going to show you a chart that defines pretty clearly for you, or should, where you need to put your effort. It's the critical data, not just a lot of data, but pinpointing down to a very specific spot or two that should help you to develop your system, to develop, in other words, the way you want to play, and most of all, to put you in touch with statistical data that can help you win. It'll at least show you how to win. It's up to you to find the means that will create the results you want to have. I learned this a long time ago. What I'm going to show you, and it has been very steady through the years. I was a coach at West Texas State University, and it was the summertime. And I was just sitting outside, it was night, it was a Sunday night, by myself, thinking, what can I find that I don't have to go all over the place and think about all these different things. I wanted to refine it to just one or two items. And I didn't know any other way of doing it. I just started writing the different categories: rebounding, turnover, field goal percentage, that kind of thing. Rebounding, I think I said. And then I went to my box scores and of our season, and I just started writing down, this game we won, our field goal percentage was so-and-so, our opponents was so-and-so, and went through the thing. I began to see that an awful lot of times, most of the time, when we won, we had a better field goal percentage than our opponents. But it grew from there. And now, many years, many games, this study I'll show you is on the 2017, 2018 NBA playoff games, and to show you who is winning, why they're winning. So I have a chart, and I want you to see it, and we'll explain it when you see the chart. So enjoy yourself and learn. Well, this is a microscopic look at the entire charts that we use to get this information. But I want to go through quickly and tell you how we did it. First of all, these years up here were the years between 2003 and 2007. We did 337 playoff games during that period, and my thought was we needed to update that. So these numbers down here represent 2017 NBA playoffs and the 2018 NBA playoffs. That's a number of 121 games. But when you combine this, it's almost, we're closing up on 500 games that we've been doing this. So the data is realistic. There isn't any doubt about that. Now, what we're seeing here, this is the NBA format. This is when you combine threes and twos together. It's the effective percentage is when you try to determine what your effective would be just shooting 3-point shots, but it's a very poor and not unreal to me. A look at your shooting percentage, because what you're really doing is you're telling how many points you score off of your shots. In this case, that's the value. And I did at this time, these years, I used a value, but it's pretty close. You can see to the NBA format. And then this just indicates the rebound. This is the number of rebounds of your rebounds, or the winning team's rebounds, and the losing team's rebounding. In other words, if you out rebound your opponents, you're going to win 66% of the time. If you have a better field goal percentage, you're going to win 81% of the time. Turnovers, 64% of the time if you have less turnovers than your opponents. And the same with free throws made, 66% of the time if you make more free throws than your opponents. Here's a big one. This is positive offensive possessions. There's only two: defensive rebounds and steals. But when you add them together, you get a number. If that number is higher than your opponent's number of defensive rebounds and steals combined, you win 78% of the time. Very close to the top number. Now here, when we did this originally, we were learning. What we did was we just counted the number of times that the team had the highest percentage. The winning team had the highest field goal percentage. What this represents is there was 272 out of 337 games that the winning team had the highest percentage, or 81%. To make it more simple, look at it this way. If you are better than your opponents in any one of these categories, it's going to tell you what your chances are winning if you are dominant in, say, rebounds. But when we did 2017 and 2018, very modern, we did it differently here. We put the percentage that the winning team had and the percentage that the losing team had. This represents an average. The shooting percentage average of the winning teams was 49%. The 43% represents the losing team's average, 43%. This is much more helpful to a coach, I think. And so we'll talk more about that. But as you can see, the chart has not changed much in 10 years. Regardless of what people are talking about, a new era and all of that, it's about the same. 85% though is represented here versus 81%. And I'm a little hesitant on that number. I think it's a little high, but I'll go into it at a later time. Now I added blocks, took the value out because coaches don't look at it that way. It's as accurate as the effective, but it shows the same thing, which you're getting the most points for the shots made. Well, it doesn't really add much to a coaching system and strategy and that sort of thing. So I put in blocks. I was curious. And as you can see, only 57% of the time will you win if you have more blocks than the losing team. That's not very high. It's the lowest of all of them. But here's what concerns me. 5 and 4. We have lost the art of blocking shots. And I think if these numbers were higher, say put them up to 7 and 6, or in that area, or even a bigger difference, I think it would affect this number right here. I don't know what the blocks were back here, but I think that the reason the number this is higher is because the shooting percentage is higher, in both winners and losers. We're not getting as many block shots, and you may want to consider it. Now, for me, I work very hard with my teams to block shots. Rebound number, uh, the winning team averaged 44, the losing team 40. 62% of the time, you're going to win the game if you have more rebounds. This always shocks people, and this one does too. 61% of the time, you're going to win the game if you have less turnovers. That's what it shows. Now, here's the one we added because there's so much rhetoric about the effect that the three-point shot has on basketball now that I just decided to find out how big effect does it have. Well, it doesn't have any bigger effect than turnovers or rebounds. 61% of the time, the team that makes the most threes wins. That means 39% of the time, am I right there? Yeah, 39% of the time, you can have should have less three-point shots made and still win. Uh, and this, you can look at this 12 and 10. I would have thought with all the hoopla they're talking about that there would be more three-point shots made in a game. But it's very close. You can lose and still have shoot more, make more three-point shots. So that it really doesn't show that it's very dominant. This is points of offensive possessions in this study, in these 121 games. 81% shows 81% of the time that you have the most POPs, you're going to win the game 81% of the time. I added misses for a purpose because if you're shooting a lot of those, you're going to have a lot more misses, even if you shoot a decent percentage, which would the effective guys look at. This did not show up as well as I thought it would, but still, if you have the fewest misses, you win 68% of the time. Now, that isn't as good as these numbers, but it's a lot better than those numbers. And so I think you got to consider the number of three-point shots you take, because to have a good percentage, you still have a lot of misses. And if you have a lot of misses, then you have a lot more chance for defensive rebounds, which means it's a higher winning ratio. Now, I went through that pretty fast, but if you study this and sit down with it, if you think at all about this, this should define how you want to coach. It does for me. I spend a lot of time in coaching having a good field goal percentage. That's our biggest thrust, is we know if we do that, we're going to win a lot. You should have a winning record of 85% or at least 81%. And I also know that this is a figure that we want to be very active with. And if you watched anything in Basketball Talk Pro, we talk a lot about defensive rebounds, how it affects your offense. Well, I want you to, I hope you're serious enough to really study, because from here, from these two numbers right here, is directly related to what kind of a team you want to build. If you disregard this and just say we're going to put up a lot of shots and have a lot of fun and win games, well, it's not really true. This is what's true. If you're putting up a lot of shots and the team may not be putting up a lot of shots, but their percentage is higher, they're going to win the game most of the time, no matter how crazy you are shooting. You know, Golden State Warriors take a lot of what looks like crazy shots. But if you look at the end, and when I did this study, when we did their games, their shooting percentage was always high. Not necessarily 3 points, by the way, but their overall, this combined percentage was usually in the 50% category. They'd have games where they drop down, but so this is how you build what you want to do. Well, that's it for today, and please take some time with this, and we'll see you next time.